Your explanation becomes leverage, not because it's weak, not because it's wrong, but because once you explain, the boundary is no longer the point. The explanation is. Most people believe explanations create understanding. They don't. They create access. The moment you start explaining a decision, you're offering someone a way inside it, inside your reasoning, inside your emotional landscape, inside what might still be negotiable. And most people, consciously or not, use that access. Here's the moment it happens. You say no. The other person pauses, and then they ask, why? That question sounds neutral, it sounds reasonable, it even sounds respectful. But it's not a request for clarity, it's a request for leverage. Because once you answer it, the conversation shifts. Now the discussion isn't about what you decided, it's about whether your reason is acceptable. You say, I can't commit to that. They say, I understand, but what's going on? And suddenly, you're explaining your workload, your stress, your schedule, your priorities. You think you're being transparent. What you're actually doing is building a case. And cases invite rebuttals. Here's the part people miss. Pushback doesn't come from confusion, it comes from disappointment. And disappointment looks for angles. So the other person listens closely, not to understand you, but to find a contradiction, an exception, a soft spot, something that sounds flexible. They respond with, well, what if we adjusted this? Couldn't you just this once? Maybe you're being too hard on yourself. Now your boundary is being managed, not respected. This isn't because the other person is manipulative. It's because explanations invite participation. They turn your decision into a shared process. And boundaries are not a process. They're an endpoint. Watch what happens when you remove the explanation. I can't do that. No justification, no emotional cushioning, no reassurance, just stillness. That stillness is uncomfortable, not because you did something wrong, but because there's nothing to respond to, no leverage. Most people break here. They feel the silence and rush to fill it. They add, I just have a lot going on. I don't want you to think, it's not personal. That's the moment leverage returns, because now there's something to work with again. Regulated people don't sound persuasive. They sound repetitive. They say the same sentence with the same tone at the same volume every time. Not louder, not colder, just unchanged. And that repetition does something powerful. It teaches people where the line actually is. When you stop explaining, one of two things happens. The other person adjusts, or they escalate. Both outcomes are information, but neither requires you to add words. The goal of a boundary is not agreement, it's clarity. And clarity doesn't grow when you add language, it sharpens when you remove it. When the sentence ends, the leverage ends, and that's where the boundary finally holds.